Your ideas of Atlantis are partially composed of future memories. They are psychic yearnings toward the ideal civilization, patterns within the psyche, even as each fetus has within it the picture of its own most ideal fulfillment toward which it grows. Atlantis is a land that you want to inhabit, appearing in your literature, your dreams, and your fantasies, serving as an impetus for development. It is real and valid. In your terms, it is not yet physical fact, but in some ways it is more real than any physical fact, for it is a psychic blueprint. It carries also, however, the imprint of your fears, for the tales say that Atlantis was destroyed. You place it in your past while it exists in your future. Not the destruction alone, but the entire pattern seen through the framework of your beliefs. Beside this, however, many civilizations have come and gone in somewhat the same manner, and the myth of Atlantis is based somewhat, then, on physical fact in your terms. The species then moves into its own new houses. Atlantis is the story of a future probability projected backward into an apparent past. Your planet as you know it is a certain kind of focus point for consciousness. At your level, you think it is divided into areas of land and water, continents and oceans, islands and peninsulas, cities and woods, because that is all you perceive. Your consciousness is tuned into frequencies of perception that give you that impression. A cat's whirl, or an insect's, or plants, are each far different, yet equally valid. As simply as I can explain it, your planet is also divided into time and probability areas, period. So many civilizations exist at once then, and there are certain bleed-throughs. In your terms, some civilizations are real and perceivable, and some are not. Atlantis, first of all, take it for granted, as you do, that your ideas about the age of the earth are erroneous. There were intelligent human beings far earlier than you supposed. And because you assume a one-line kind of progression from an ape-like creature to man, you ignore any evidence that shows to the contrary. There were highly developed human beings with elaborate civilizations existing simultaneously with what you might call animal kingdoms. That is, more or less organized primeval animal tribes possessing their own kinds of primitive cultures. Those animal kingdoms, some of them, utilized tools. Their senses were extremely acute, and their cultures dealt with a kind of transmission of knowledge that made a highly complicated vocabulary unnecessary. Those species did not vie for domination of the earth, but simply shared the same general environment with the more sophisticated groupings beyond their own perimeters. There were many highly technical human cultures, but in your terms not on a global scale. The legend of Atlantis is actually based upon several such civilizations. No particular civilization is the basis, however. Apart from that, the legend is as picked up, so to speak, by Plato, was a pre-recognition of the future probability, an image of an inner civilization of the mind, actually projected outward into the future, where it would be used as a blueprint. Dash the lost grandeur, as, in other terms, Eden became the lost garden of paradise. Rupert has implied in his novel The Education of Oversoul 7 that some archaeological discoveries about the past are not discovered in your present because they do not exist yet. Now, such concepts are difficult to explain in my kind of prose and in your language, but in certain terms the ruins of Atlantis have not been found because they have not been placed in your past yet from the future. Now, the future is probable. However, In your terms, there are ruins of the civilizations that served as a concrete basis for the Atlantean legend. These civilizations were scattered. The so-called ruins would not be found in any one place as expected, therefore. There are some beneath the Aegean Sea, and some beneath an offshoot of the Atlantic, and some beneath the Arctic, for the world had a different shape. In far greater terms, time is simultaneous, so that civilizations exist along with your own. So those civilizations exist along with your own. Your methods of dating the age of the earth are very misleading. In your terms, from your present, your plant images, tales, legends at any given time that seem to come from the past but are actually like ghost images from the future for you to follow or disregard as you choose. Atlantis and the Garden of Eden are the same in that regard. When you think that perhaps your species came from another planetary system, in time terms, then of course you are still dealing with old concepts. In your usual terms of thinking, the Earth does not exist at all, not if you are considering it as a chunk of matter occupying a certain position in a physical cosmos. It is really futile to question whether the universe came from a big boom or is constantly expanding, though in those terms I have said it continually expands as an ideal or a dream does. I'm not saying the universe does not exist, only that it does not exist in the way that it seems to you. By itself, with a smile, almost an outright laugh, by itself, the truth of the matter is far more spectacular. All that is creates its reality as it goes along. Each world has its own impetus, yet all are ultimately connected. The true dimensions of a divine creativity would be unendurable for any one consciousness of whatever import, and so that splendor is infinitely dimensionalized most intensely throughout. Worlds spiraling onward with each moment of a cosmic breath, with the separation of worlds a necessity, and with individual and mass comprehension always growing at such a rate that all that is multiplies itself at microseconds, building both past and futures and other time scales you do not recognize. Each is a reality in itself, with its own potentials, and with no individual consciousness, however minute, ever lost. In that kind of framework, how can I explain an Atlantis? It exists both in your past and future, a probable world that some of you will choose from a model placed in the past of your future, partially based upon fact, in your terms, but with its greatest validity lying in its possibilities. And thus I ended this. And I think this Seth Material I just read is just quotes from some of the chapters in it. There must be another book out there called The Seth Materials that is very long, because this was only like 40 pages long. I found it on a scribed site where you can find a lot of books to read, and you can read them right there online. I'm finding that they have a lot of the books that I read by Walter Russell. They have the Divine Iliads there, The Secret of Light, The Universal One, all kinds of books they have on these scribed channels, and anybody can go to them and type in what they're searching for to see if they have it. And boom, you're there. So easy to read a book, because we're reading it in cyberspace while we're living in cyberspace, thinking with cyberspace attitudes. The world gets smaller and it gets even more complicated. But I think that Seth Material is very interesting, and a lot of people, I'm finding out, are enjoying listening to the Seth books that I've been reading. because they are even more pertinent today than they were when they were written. And we know we're all in this world about ready for some kind of big change. Don't exactly know how to say what it is. But I do think that what we believe it to be will be along the line of what it will be. So we've got to watch our thoughts and be good storytellers. And don't be doom and gloomers, that's for sure. We've got enough of them. We've got to cancel out their thoughts. We don't want their thoughts to materialize. Not for us, anyway. If they must go through it, their Armageddons and all of that, end of the world scenarios, well, then I guess they'll do it if they just must. But we can tell them, hey, look, that's not necessary. It was a fable, and you don't have to bring it to life. You don't have to give it life by giving it your attention and your belief. Anyway, I have enjoyed the Seth Material, and I don't really understand all of it. Just like a lot of the books I read, I don't understand all of what I'm reading. And I see it as food for thought. It gives you good questions. It makes you think. And thinking is good, because thinking is creative. Anyway, this is the Dove Lady, and it's over and out.